as pointed out by a commenter on one of my videos, which I should have checked before starting the intro, but here we are, there is a really fun interaction between two of the third-party subclasses that makes for an awful lot of heroic inspiration. The Dungeoneer fighter from Valda Spire of Secrets lets you get heroic inspiration whenever you exploit a creature's vulnerability. And the Purification Cleric from Grim Hollow, I believe, lets you brand a creature when you attack it, and instead of doing damage, you replace that with giving it a fire vulnerability. The combination of these two things means that you can get heroic inspiration a lot as long as you're doing fire damage, and it results in the wildest jump in damage I've ever had in one of my builds. So let's get to it. Naturally, because this is partially a cleric build, we will be starting with fighter. It just is better generally for our damage, and certainly in the first couple of levels. And because the build doesn't really come online until you have both subclasses, the first few levels we really want to come out swinging, and that's why I went fighter first instead of cleric first. If you would rather have access to spellcasting first, you are welcome to go cleric first. It is entirely up to you. Outside of the class itself, for our background, we're going Giant Foundling, which is one from the Fizzbands books, because it gives us Strike of the Giants. You can choose a variety of different ones here, but I'm going with Fire Strike because we want to do fire and it deals an extra 1d10 of damage. For that exact same reason, we're going Goliath for our species, and we are taking, believe it or not, the Fire's Burn, the Fire Giant background. The Fire Strike we can only do once per turn. So that's once per turn we can do an extra d10 of damage. The Goliath version of this has no such restriction. It is instead limited by the amount of proficiency bonus we have, I believe. Yeah, proficiency bonus per long rest. So yeah, we've now got 2d10 of fire damage we can just plop onto things as we go. And one of those we can use proficiency bonus times per long rest, which means that we can go incredibly Nova with this build. For our stats, we're going for a strength of 17, we're going dexterity 8, con 15, intelligence 8, wisdom 16, and charisma 8. You could probably swap around the wisdom and the constitution here. Realistically, we're not using wisdom for a whole bunch. I just really like having a high wisdom score on my characters because you get access to some of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion. For the class itself, we're going to go with big old weapons. So we're taking a great sword as our weapon, and then obviously you get all the good stuff. Take some great sword stuff. It's entirely up to you what you take. I've not built in any specific things here. Greatsword is usually the correct choice. I don't know why I don't have greatsword selected on this. So yeah, make sure you go with the weapons that you're going to be using straight off the bat. And remember, this is just a single turn of damage. This isn't something you can do every turn. This is very much a Nova build. But you can do, on one turn, at level 1, 22 points of damage because you're using a 2d6 for your greatsword, you're using 2d10 because of the double fire giant thing, and plus 3 bonus, which is a lot of damage. And that might be one of the highest level 1 damages I think I can make, but it's also, like I said, it's eminently not repeatable. But it wouldn't need to be, not at level 1. Even without that, and if you spread those d10 out a little bit more, which you obviously could do, because you technically get 3 of these. Is it 3? Oh, so you technically get 4 of these. You have both features give you a number of d10s equal to your proficiency bonus. I do view these as separate features. I think there's definitely arguments in place as to why you could consider them the same. But some of the different fire giant ancestries do have different effects. So check with your DM if you're going to be doing this. I don't know how much fun this build would be to play, but yeah, this isn't about fun. This is about getting heroic inspiration. We're not getting heroic inspiration yet. Anyway, level 2, we get action surge, which doubles. Which would, well, it adds more damage. We can only do one of them once per turn, which means we can only add 1d10 to the second attack, but it does still mean we're doing 38.5 points of damage per the average of dice rolls that you would get, which is not bad. Again, this is action surged, so keep that in mind. Level 3 is where we get the fun stuff. So we're going for the Dungeoneer here. The Dungeoneer has some really interesting abilities. You get advantage on all of your attack rolls in the first round of combat, which is fantastic. But you also get heroic inspiration whenever you deal creature of a type of damage to which that creature has vulnerability, which is the main thing we're doing. If you can trigger specific weaknesses, you get heroic inspiration. If you can get a monster before you see it, you get heroic inspiration. Same with secret doors, traps, and finding items. We're only interested in one bit of this. We're now at level 3, still doing 38.5. And actually, that's going to be the same until level 6. So I'm going to stop talking about damage and we'll get to the fun stuff as we're going. At level 4, you're going to go Cleric. In terms of spells, we're not really using any as it stands. I've not actually considered any spells at all. I do think it's worth noting that there's a good reason to consider taking things like Bless and Healing Word and Cure Wounds and all of that good stuff. But for this specific build, I'm not interested in that stuff. The Divine Order, you may as well go Thaumaturge because we've got all the armor proficiencies already because we're a fighter. Cleric level 2 nets us Channel Divinity, which is nice. Again, no change to damage. So this is level 5 now. Level 6, we get Cleric 3. This is where things change substantially. So we take the Purification Domain from Grim Hollow. Here's Grim Hollow. This allows us to do a bunch of stuff. It gives us spells, which again, I'm just not using because I'm bad at building spellcasters. The next build is going to be a spellcaster and it's horrendous because it's a blade singer, so I'm sorry in advance for that. The way that this whole thing works is proficiency bonus times wisdom modifier plus proficiency bonus. We can add a d8 to our attacks, which is lovely because we like being able to add d8s to things. And it's a lot, basically. It also means, these is per short rest as well. It also means obviously that we can improve our consistency of damage, which is a big deal. That's one of the reasons why our wisdom is higher, despite the fact we're not using spells. Most importantly, we get Unclean Brand, which reads, when you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack or unarmed strike, instead of dealing the damage, you can expend one use of your Channel Divinity to sear a symbol into the creature's flesh, marking it with a glowing brand for 1 minute. During that time, the creature has disadvantage on saving throws against your spells. Doesn't matter. Additionally, the creature gains vulnerability to fire damage you deal, even if it normally has resistance or immunity to the fire damage you deal. At this point, we swap from doing 2 standard attacks, and our first attack, we brand them. And that's going to be the case going forward every single level from now on. You could definitely, if you wanted to get more damage out of your Nova turn, brand them and then hit them normally instead of doing all the crazy stuff that we're going to be doing. And that's perfectly fine. And that's probably the correct way to do it. But I like to keep things simple when I can. Some of these builds have a lot of things going on, especially whenever I build a rogue, I end up regretting it because there's too many dice involved. He says, like this one doesn't have a bunch of dice. So after the first attack, which brands them, they have vulnerability to fire damage, which means we are effectively doing double the number of dice as long as it is fire dice. This means that the 2d10 from our background and our species both jump up to 4d10, and it also means the 1d8 from the subclass goes up to 2d8. At this point, the first attack, brand, and the action surge attack, we're doing 2d6 plus 4d10 plus 2d8 plus 3, which is 41 damage on average. This is a slight bump of 2.5 over not using the brand, so I actually don't know that this is the correct way to do this. As I said, the logical way to do this is to brand them on 1 turn, and then next turn just do 2 of these, but we'll get to it. At level 7, we're going back to Fighter, which is where we're staying for the rest of the build. This is where we get our first ASI, which is good, obviously, and more weapon masteries, which is irrelevant because we've got a great sword for the purposes of numbers. We're going to go Great Weapon Master because we have advantage on every single attack that we're doing, basically. So we have advantage on all of our attack rolls on the first turn because of the Dungeoneer. We also get Heroic Inspiration every time we hit a creature with fire vulnerability, which is on every single one of our attacks. So every single attack, even after your first turn, you will have a Heroic Inspiration to use if you want to, which is, as it turns out, pretty powerful. This is beyond normal advantage. This goes into the realm of incredibly stupid, ultimately. This also boosts our strength to 18, which is nice because, you know, getting that extra point is good. And it also means that we do a little bit of extra damage because of Great Weapon Master, which means that we get an alright boost to our damage here up to 45, which is not bad. At level 8, we get extra attack, and this is where the build completely changes. We're still doing the same thing, but it turns out that adding more attacks to this kind of thing on your first turn is quite potent. The result is we do 1 attack to brand, our second attack to actually deal damage and use all of our special dice on. So we're doing 45 damage on that. And then both the action surge and the action surge extra attack, we will be doing 34 damage on. So our damage jumps up from level 7, 45, which is semi-respectable, especially because you can still heal in things, to 113. It is worth noting, I have not assumed you're going to be critting for any of this, but with advantage on that many attacks, the chances that you crit is pretty high, and it will get higher next level, which is fun. So you've actually more likely than not got your bonus action available to do another hit of 34. So while I've said it's 113, I don't think it's unreasonable to list it at 147, which is pretty darn good. I won't be counting the bonus action attack, just like I don't generally count in crit damage either, even if we're going for a crit build. I like to go for the average. It is worth noting. At level 6, we get another ASI. I really struggle not to want to go fighter with every single build I do, because having this many ASIs is really flexible. We're going with Focused Critical, which allows us to crit on a 19 or a 20, a la champion, and bumps our crit chance up to 47% per turn. So you're almost definitely critting, basically, once per turn. Well, 47 isn't almost definitely, but it's close enough to 50% that every other turn you should assume you can crit, which means you can get your bonus attack. This doesn't do a huge amount for our damage. It only bumps us up by one per attack, so we're only going up to 116, but that's still not bad. Fighter 7, we get Dungeon Precautions, which gives us a bunch of spells we can use to protect ourselves in dungeons, basically. You get one cast of Alarm, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Detect Poison or Disease, Find Traps, Identify, and Purify Food and Drink per long rest. You can use it 5 times per long rest, which is really good, actually. It's kind of cool. I like this feature a lot. The class is super niche, but when you take it with something like this, it becomes pretty potent. Doesn't do anything for our damage though, so we're still at 116. Fighter level 8, which is level 11 overall, we get another ASI, which is, good. As we're doing greatsword attacks, I thought it would be wise to take Slasher and bump our strength up to 20, which gives us a little bit of a damage boost as well. And also means that we can reduce the speed of creatures we hit, because we're going to be doing that a lot. And when you crit, the creature gets disadvantage on their attack rolls. You're going to be critting pretty often, so this is nice. Bumps our damage up to 119, by the way. Still quite respectable. At level 9, we get Indomitable, which is nice. Still 119 damage, not a huge amount changes there. At level 10, we get another Weapon Mastery, which is fine. Just not bothered about it, Our proficiency bonus goes up, which is nice, because that improves our Great Weapon Master damage, so the damage goes up to 122. And you also get this once per turn when you hit an aberration, dragon, fey, fiend, monstrosity, ooze, or undead with an attack with a weapon, you can deal an extra 1d10 damage to the target, which is nice. An extra d10 is an extra d10. Again, I haven't factored that in, but it's worth noting. And then the final level for this particular build, just a level 14 one today, because I kind of did what I set out to do. You get 2 extra attacks, which is like the two extra attacks, which I'm here for. This bumps our chance to crit up to 65%, which means you are going to critical hit more often than you're not going to critical hit per turn. And also means that we get 5 attacks, basically, of this preposterous amount of damage. So on this first turn in combat, you not only have advantage on all your rolls, you're also getting heroic inspiration constantly, and you get to do 1 hit of 47 and then 4 hits of 37, which puts us up to 195. Statistically speaking, one of those is going to be a crit, and statistically speaking, you're also going to get your bonus action attack as well because of the fact that you crit. Which means you can add another 74 damage to that pretty comfortably, which puts the damage of this build up to 269, which is nice. At level 14. Again, this is super Nova based. This isn't something I would necessarily ever recommend playing, but it could be fun. I did try to figure out a way of getting Elemental Weapon, but it's a level, I want to say it's a level 3 spell, and it's on the Druid list. Technically speaking, we could go Druid, and you could get to a point where you get Elemental Weapon, and then all of your damage will be fire-based, and you'll be doubling even more of it. For the purposes of this little thing, I didn't do that, because I didn't want to. But that is it for this version of this. I am going to do a Purification Cleric with an Elemental Monk to see what the damage looks like there. I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun. But that is it. I hope you enjoyed this rather silly exercise in what should I do with 6 heroic inspirations every turn, basically. What fun that is. So yeah, if you've ever wanted to just get all the heroic inspiration, this is how you can do it. So have fun with that. That is it though. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It's kind of a silly one today. But I will see you next time, whenever that is. Do take care. Goodbye.